So let's move on to Tottenham Hotspur with their new manager, Thomas Frank. But will they keep their captain, Heung-min Son? What's the latest on his future, Michael?
Well, Spurs return tomorrow for early testing, pre-season training, and the rest of the squad sort of will come back next week, sort of starting properly at the beginning of the week. And the Tottenham Hotspur club captain there, Son, Europa League winner, will return. Now, we've said over the last few weeks that this might be the summer where he looks for a new challenge. We also told you that Spurs will grant him a final decision if Spurs receive an acceptable offer. There's been interest over the past few years from Saudi Arabia. There's been interest from the MLS. I think Hugo Lloris might have had a word in his ear about living in Los Angeles. And there's also been reports this morning about he might want to stay now from South Korea. But what we do know is that they will speak. They will talk about potential final year. But what we do need to say is that Son is under contract at Tottenham and does have another year. Does he want that? Does he want that final year at Tottenham Hotspur? Does he want that final year under Thomas Frank? Or do Tottenham get a decent offer for him and he looks to pastures new? So everything is on the table at the moment. What I would say is we've got also talk of Christian Romero, that Atletico Madrid's interest won't go away. We know there was a sort of interest of around 35 to 40 million a few weeks ago. I don't know what that was for, his left or his right arm, because you're not going to get Christian Romero for 35, 40 million, are you? So we'll wait and see on that one. But I don't think Thomas Frank will want to lose your captain and your vice-captain in his first start at the football club. OK,
Michael, let's just break there, because Darmesh has some breaking news for us.
Yeah, this is major breaking news. This is an original story from David Ornstein. We've just had it confirmed, and that is that Burnley have agreed a deal with Manchester City to sign their England international defender Kyle Walker. The deal could be worth £5 million. He's been having a medical today, has Kyle Walker, and all being well, a formal announcement is expected soon. The contract discussions for this deal are over a 2-year contract. Remember, Walker had entered the final year of his contract at Manchester City. He spent last season on loan with the Serie A club AC Milan. Milan actually had an option to make that deal permanent, but they declined that option to make the deal permanent. Walker then came back to Manchester City, but we almost felt like his future at Manchester City was basically over because he'd been allowed to go to AC Milan in the first place. He didn't travel with Manchester City to the United States for the FIFA Club World Cup, obviously to allow him to try and get a deal sorted elsewhere. This one now looks really, really close. Burnley agreed a deal with Manchester City to sign defender Kyle Walker. This could be a sensational coup now for the newly promoted Burnley in the Premier League.
Thanks, Darmesh. So Kyle Walker, former Tottenham player, on his way to Burnley. What sort of player does Thomas Frank need to bring in? What sort of profile is he looking for to bring into his Tottenham squad?
Well, they would like a pacey forward. There was interest in Brian and Bruno. Anton Semenyo, there was interest from him from Bournemouth. We know they like Mohamed Kudus at West Ham United. Now, that's an interesting one because, you know, West Ham and Tottenham don't usually do business. I think in the last transfer was Scott Parker, and that didn't really go down well in East London. I don't think Chelsea do business with Tottenham, do they, either? It's a running trend with teams with Spurs, but because Arsenal and Chelsea don't seem to have that problem. But I think a pacey forward is what they'll look for. Look, there's talk about Kudus, what the value potentially would be on him. Release clause, I don't think Spurs would, or any clubs will look to his release clause, but then there's talk about West Ham maybe needing to sell Kudus for Graham Potter to bring people in. One source did tell me that is there a potential Tottenham tax because they don't really, in an ideal world, want to sell him to Spurs, maybe to another club. We'll have to wait and see on that one. I think Spurs might look for a new number 6 in that midfield and maybe some cover at fullback as well. So, look, I think it's going to ramp up at Spurs. I really do think so over the next few weeks. Can't forget that Matisse Tell has gone through on a permanent deal. Kota Takai, a Japanese defender, is going to arrive for around £5 million. Now, whether he goes straight into the first team, we'll wait and see. But it's one of those, Thomas Frank is going to see who comes in. Let's remember, a year ago, we were on this show and Brentford had agreed a fee with Leeds for Archie Gray. So I bet he can't wait to work with Archie Gray. He wanted to buy Brennan Johnson when he was at Brentford. So there's players there he's probably really looking forward to working with. But look, I'm not being funny. Spurs do need to bring a few in as well.
Well, let's hope he's looking forward to working with Daniel Levy, who keeps hijacking all his deals when he was at Brentford. There is Champions League football at Tottenham next season. They're going to need a better squad?
Honestly, I mean, good luck to Thomas. It's a really tough job. I mean, and I know he wants to challenge himself, and it's a great job for him. And but he's arriving at a club who've won the Europa League, and I think most Tottenham supporters just love the fact that they'd won a trophy. But what comes with that beautiful Europa League trophy is Champions League football. Now, last season we saw Ange Postecoglou. He didn't really juggle in the end. He sort of put the Premier League to one side and went for the Europa League. And when the draw sort of opened up, you're not going to be able to do that next season. You're not going to be able to rest players for certain Europa League games. It's going to be a Tuesday, Wednesday Champions League, Saturday Premier League. It's going to be really, really tough. So I'm really intrigued to see how they cope. But it could be exciting because obviously he was so keen to join the club. So we'll wait and see.
And of course they have to deal with the different regulations for the players that they put in the different squads, which have different ramifications. It's the first time that Thomas Frank has been faced with that kind of problem.
Yeah, there's a real homegrown quota as well that Spurs have to adhere to. And another what interests me is that I've really enjoyed watching the videos of Thomas Frank mic'd up in training, listening to him in Monday Night Football, the importance of training. With all these games, you're not going to have much time to train, just going to pack your bags all the time. But look, I'm really...
Nobody takes as long as you.
No. But I mean, look, it's going to be an interesting pre-season as well. They've got a couple of games in the UK. They've got Reading, then they've got Luton. Then they go to Hong Kong for a North London derby, as you do.
Yes.
And then they've got, off the top of my head, they go to South Korea to play Newcastle. And then he could win a trophy, Claire. He could win a trophy. It's only PSG.
Injuries, though, big problem under Ange Postecoglou. So what's going on the sports science front in the background?
Well, we know he's brought in some very, very highly regarded coaches, and I think that was one of the reasons why the deal was held up in terms of being announced, because Justin Cochran, for example, so highly regarded at Brentford, England, but he was a Spurs under-16s coach. He's returned. He's brought a number of coaches with him. But what will be intriguing, Spurs did have an awful amount of injuries last season. An 18-year-old midfielder in Archie Gray playing centre-half was really tough on him at times. There was some really poor defeats and the squad was really stretched. Was it the style of play under Ange Postecoglou? Was it too many games? It's one of those where you wait and see. What I will say is when the season pretty much finished, when you had that back four of Porro, Romero, Van der Ven and Udogie, Spurs looked a lot tighter, and I think that tightness and at the back and that leadership from Romero was a big reason why they won Europa League, because they didn't have Bergvall, they didn't have Kulusevski and they didn't have James Maddison.
So consistency was the key.
Yes.
OK, we will watch the Tottenham story this summer with interest. Thanks for now, Michael. Now to a former Spurs manager, and Jose Mourinho's Fenerbahce have been linked with the signing of ex-Aston Villa striker Jean Duran. Speaking at the British Grand Prix earlier today, Mourinho, of course, was giving nothing away.
In Turkey every day they say that I spend my day on the phone with players, speaking with players, calling players. That's not true at all. I have my structure, the president, the technical director working on that. They know what I want, they know what I don't want. We are always in touch. But I took my month holiday to be preparing for the next, and the next is Sunday. We start Sunday.
Well, Mourinho's old club Chelsea are in action in the early hours of tomorrow morning as their Club World Cup campaign continues. It comes as they've fallen foul of UEFA financial rules. Our chief correspondent, Kaveh Solokol, is out in Philadelphia for us. Kaveh, what can you tell us about this UEFA story first up?
Well, I hope you're sitting comfortably. You may need a degree in accountancy to understand all this. But basically what's happened is that Chelsea have been fined 31 million euros by UEFA for breaking their financial rules. Now that can increase to 91 million euros if Chelsea miss financial targets which have been set for them by UEFA. So this 31 million euro fine is made up of a 20 million euro fine for breaking UEFA's financial monitoring rules, and that could go up by another £60 million if over the next 4 years Chelsea miss the targets which have been set by UEFA. Also, Chelsea have been fined 11 million euros for breaking UEFA's squad cost rules. Those rules basically say that clubs can only spend a maximum of 80% of their revenue on transfers and player wages. And UEFA say that Chelsea have broken those rules and they've gone over the permitted 80%. UEFA say Chelsea have spent between 80 and 90% of their revenue on transfers and player wages. Also, if you remember the sort of slightly strange situation where the two hotels that are at Stamford Bridge, Chelsea sold those two hotels. They were involved in a transaction which was worth £76 million. Basically what happened is that they were sold by one subsidiary of Chelsea's holding company to another subsidiary of Chelsea's holding company. That meant that Chelsea could bank an extra £76 million in revenue, which obviously helps them when they're trying to comply with financial fair play rules and PSR rules. Now that kind of transaction is allowed under Premier League rules, but it is not allowed under UEFA's rules, and that is one of the reasons why Chelsea have been hit with this fine. So that's Chelsea. Now the Aston Villa case is a bit simpler. What's happened with Aston Villa is that they've been fined 11 million euros for breaking UEFA's financial rules. That can rise to 26 million euros if Aston Villa miss financial targets set by UEFA. Now the 11 million euro fine is made up of 5 million euros for breaking UEFA's football earning rules, and also 6 million euros for breaking UEFA's squad cost rules. So Aston Villa have also spent more than the permitted 80% of their revenue on player wages and transfers. And that 5 million euro fine for breaking the football earnings rules, that can increase by 15 million euros to a maximum of 20 million euros if Aston Villa miss financial targets which have been set for them by UEFA. Very, very simple, isn't it? I mean, why can't UEFA just release a press statement saying Chelsea have been fined this much for breaking this rule, Aston Villa have been fined this much for breaking this rule? No, instead we get long, convoluted statements with addendums and attachments and findings and tables, and goes on and on and on. I'm just a football reporter doing my best to understand all this. I think I may need to take a sort of evening course in accountancy to keep up with all these financial regulations which have basically taken over football over the past couple of years.
Kaveh, this is why we pay you the big bucks, and I shall be on to you to help me with my tax return in a couple of months.
I wish.
OK, let's just get to this very strange situation that Chelsea have got later on over in America. They're coming up against a man that they're about to have on their team, but he's playing in the World Cup quarter-final against them.
Before I come to that, can I just come to one other thing as well, which is even more complicated, because this is really important for Chelsea and Aston Villa supporters. Is there a possibility that they could also be under a transfer embargo from UEFA? Now, I've been trying to get my head around this, read everything that UEFA have released, and there is a possibility that Chelsea and Aston Villa will be limited from registering players for UEFA competitions going forward. Because in one of the releases from UEFA today, and I'll just read it out to you so you can get your head around it, it says that both Chelsea and Aston Villa have agreed to be subject to sporting restrictions which may mean that they won't be able to register any new players on their A list for UEFA club competitions. And I think what they go on to say is that both Chelsea and Aston Villa have to balance their books when it comes to transfers, so they need to sell players as well as buy players to comply with UEFA's regulations and to be able to register players for UEFA competitions. So I hope I answered that as well. Now, getting back to your question about Esteval, this is a really, really strange situation because Chelsea are playing Palmeiras this evening. One of Palmeiras' best players is this incredible young Brazilian player called Esteval. Now, Chelsea know all about him because last summer they signed him for £29 million, but they agreed to let him carry on playing for Palmeiras, and he's going to be playing for Palmeiras against them this evening. Now, a lot of people in the Brazilian media are unhappy about this. They feel that Estevão is not fully focused on Palmeiras because he's already thinking about moving to London and playing for Chelsea as soon as this tournament finishes. Who knows? You know, if Palmeiras are knocked out this evening, I'm sure he's going to start making travel arrangements and looking for homes in and around Chelsea's training ground in Cobham. But no, the sort of the briefings coming out of Palmeiras are that the player is totally focused, and we're going to have this unique situation this evening where effectively a Chelsea player is going to be playing against them in FIFA's Club World Cup.
Carve, thanks very much. Producer Johnny says thanks for ruining his rundown.
Sorry about that.
With Jamie Gitten's impending arrival, Chelsea will have 13 contracted forwards going into the new season. There are 4 recognised centre forwards in the shape of Liam Delap, Christopher Nkunku, João Pedro and Nicholas Jackson, and no fewer than 9 attacking players to surround them, including Estevão Willian, as we just heard, and don't forget Raheem Sterling, as he returns from his loan spell at Arsenal. Gosh only knows what the squad is going to look like by September's deadline. Now, Arsenal are getting deals lined up, including Christian Norgard. But when will they be done? We'll update you on their business in just a few minutes.
Welcome back to the Transfer Show. It's time now to go around the clubs.
Certainly is, Michael. Takahiro Tomiyasu has left Arsenal after there was a mutual termination of his contract. He's currently recovering from a long-term knee injury.
Aston Villa have confirmed that Philippe Coutinho has completed a permanent move to Brazilian club Vasco da Gama.
Joe Rothwell has revealed he could have joined Rangers back in 2022 before he opted for Bournemouth, but he's delighted to have joined them now.
Well, Brentford have signed Antony Miliambo from Eredivisie side Feyenoord. The 20-year-old midfielder has penned a 5-year deal with a club option of a further year.
Karim Mitoma sees his long-term future at Brighton. He has entered the final 2 years of his current deal.
In the last few moments, it's been confirmed that Kyle Walker has agreed to join Burnley, and he played alongside Scott Parker at Spurs.
Chelsea are on the verge of signing forward Jamie Gittins after Borussia Dortmund confirmed an agreement is in place.
Crystal Palace among the Premier League clubs interested in Napoli's Jens Kachuste. The Sweden international impressed on loan at Ipswich last season, despite their relegation back to the Championship.
Michael Keane has signed a new 1-year deal at Everton. He was out of contract earlier this week.
Well, Atletico Madrid are interested in signing Fulham's Alex Iwobi. Now, there are reports Atletico Madrid have already made a bid of £21 million.
Leeds United have announced defender Max Wober has joined Werder Bremen on a season-long loan.
Well, after spending big in this window and the last one, there may be some high-profile departures at Manchester City.
Marcus Rashford, Jadon Sancho, Alejandro Garnacho, Anthony and Tiro Malacia have told Manchester United they want to leave the club.
Newcastle United have made an improved offer worth £55 million for Nottingham Forest forward Anthony Elanga.
Callum Hudson-Odoi's representatives have been in Athens discussing a new contract with Nottingham Forest officials. Hudson-Odoi's current deal is up next summer.
Sunderland have signed midfielder Noah Siddiqui from Union St Gilloise for a fee worth £17.5 million. He signed a 5-year contract.
Tottenham Hotspur are one of a number of clubs interested in West Ham United forward Mohamed Kudus. It's been 14 years since a West Ham player transferred to Spurs. That was
Scott Parker. And back to West Ham United. Interest in Mohamed Kudus is strong, but West Ham have yet to receive any formal offers for the forward.
Rangers are close to agreeing a loan deal for Wolves centre-back Nasser Jigga. It's understood any deal would be a season-long loan.
Thanks, guys. Now, Rangers have already brought in midfielder Joe Rothwell from Bournemouth earlier in the week, and he's been speaking about swapping the Premier League for the Scottish Premiership today.
Obviously, there was a little bit of interest there before the manager got the job, but as soon as I found out that he was getting it, he gave me a phone call, and I was like, yeah, I'll be straight there. I think he just sees the game how I would like to, if I was a manager, how I would like to play the game. So Yeah, that was the main pull, but I've said it before, it's more what he is as a guy that you want to come work for him, not just the stuff he does on the pitch. As a kid, you dream of playing European football, so we've got a massive game obviously coming up in a couple of weeks' time, so that's our main focus at the minute, but obviously if we can manage to get through that, and as I say, yeah, chance to play European football is massive.
2 signings then in for Rangers this week, Michael. They're in a big rush.
Barnet on him, eh? Wow, unbelievable. They've also signed him. I mean, he's really highly regarded. Rothwell, I know a couple of Leeds fans who said they'd be happy to have kept him this season, but they've also signed Emmanuel Fernandez from Peterborough and close to agreeing a loan deal with Wolves for Nasser Giga. That would be a really interesting one. He's a centre-back as well. That would be a straight loan. Now, they've also got Max Aarons they've brought in from Bournemouth as well. Why are they rushing? Because they've got a huge Champions League qualifier on 22nd of July. That's a tough one as well, Panathinaikos. But I'm really intrigued to see how Russell Martin gets on at Rangers this season.
OK. Now, striker Jonathan David is on the verge of joining a European giant. Details of his move are on the way as the Transfer Show returns. Welcome back to the Transfer Show on a busy Friday night. Now, we promised you Arsenal news, and that's what we're going to give you right now. Dharmesh, news of, well, a departure at Arsenal. Who's that? Yeah,
Arsenal announced earlier today that the defender Takehiro Tomiyasu has left the club after the club and the player and his representatives agreed on a mutual termination of his contract. He's currently recovering from a long-term knee injury, is Tomiyasu, and he's not expected to be fit until later on this year. He's got 1 year left on his contract. Arsenal have got the option to extend that for a further year. But I think all parties came together and probably thought, because of the injury as well, and because of how much football he's missed, this was probably the best course of event for his career as well. So he can basically start again and with a new chapter. He's only 26 years of age, is Tomiyasu. I think the reason they think the parting was right now, he only played 6 minutes of football last season. And in the previous 3 seasons that he was at Arsenal, he made 36 Premier League starts in total. So injuries have really ravaged his time at Arsenal. I think it was almost a reluctant decision that they had to make, but they feel it's the right one now, I think, for him and the club.
We're just teasing Arsenal fans. Let's talk about incomings.
Right, I'll run through this quite quickly if I can. Announcements. We know that Kepa Arrizabalaga has joined. That was announced earlier on this week. Announcement on Martin Zubimendi's move from Real Sociedad and Christian Norgaard's transfer from Brentford. They're both expected soon, we're told. Everything is in place with both of those deals. Arsenal have met the release clause of £51 million for Zubimendi. They've agreed a deal worth around £15 million, we think, for Norgaard. And we think personal terms for both of them are effectively agreed in principle. They're after a central defender as well, Christian Mosquera from Valencia. He's only got a year left on his contract, hence why Arsenal feel there's an opportunity to get a good deal done there. At the moment, there's a gap in valuation, but I think Arsenal are optimistic and hopeful that maybe they can meet somewhere in the middle between what they want to pay and what Valencia want, and hopefully get Mosquera in maybe even before their pre-season tour. And they're still exploring deals for the attacking side of the pitch as well.
Well, this is the thing. If I was an Arsenal fan sitting at home, I'd be like, well, but what about a striker?
I know. And this is the question that gets asked every single transfer window. I'll come to the striker in just a moment. Eberiche Eze is a player that they're definitely interested in. They know what the deal will require. It's a £60 million release clause plus £8 million in performance-related add-ons. They're also interested in Real Madrid's Rodrigo, which would be an incredible deal if they could do it. And we mentioned one of those players on the list that Chelsea have got. Raheem Sterling, of course, was on loan at Arsenal last season. He's gone back to Chelsea, but Noni Madueke is someone that Arsenal are seriously looking at as well. And then we come to the strikers. Benjamin Sesko and Victor Gyökeres are the 2 names that will not go away. 2 different ages, similar kind of prices. It's just going to depend on which direction Arsenal want to go. So there's still decisions internally to be made before they make that decision. And because you keep asking the question, when are they going to sign this striker? I think Arsenal are aware of this. And I think they're also aware that they've got to get it right. Hence why they will take their time. There's still 2 months of this transfer window to go. Get it right and make sure they get the right player in.
OK, Dams, let's head to the Championship, Bridgie. Former Celtic player Kyogo on his way to where?
Birmingham. They're in advanced talks to sign him from Rennes for around £10 million. That's the discussion they're having at the moment. Now, he's been at Rennes, and it's not been a good 6 months for him at Rennes, but Celtic fans will remember him, and what a player he was. Now, Birmingham manager Chris Davis will know him from his time at Celtic as well. And look, we know how ambitious Birmingham City are, but that would be some move. We're told that he wants to play at a high level to be considered for the World Cup next year. He was in and out of that Japan side, so Birmingham City fans should be pretty pleased if that move goes through.
They're looking upwards, aren't they, Birmingham City? They're making some moves.
I've got to say, it's one of the most exciting championship seasons we've got coming up. I really do. The three coming down, and you've got two teams coming up, Birmingham and Wrexham. I know people say, "Oh, stop going on about them," but you can't not, can you? Because when they're spending big money.
Dharmesh, let's just look a bit wider to Europe. Jonathan David finally leaving Lille after so many windows.
You're saying finally leaving Lille, are you? Because you've fed up of me talking about it for the last 84 transfer windows, are you? How dare you? Look, Jonathan David has arrived in Turin. He arrived last night. We can see pictures of him now, I think, and cue. And there we are. This is him arriving for his medical.
The magic of television.
Exactly. This is him arriving for his medical. I can actually tell you that he's passed his medical. This was this morning. He's had his medical and he's passed it. He will then formally sign a long-term contract with Juventus. We think it's a 5-year deal. Remember, he's a free agent after his contract at Lille expired earlier this week. He had quite a few options as well. Clubs in Spain, other clubs in Italy. There were a couple of Premier League clubs who were looking at him as well. But it's thought once Juventus came in, he really wanted to speak to them. They're a heavyweight club in European football. They've got Champions League, which is really what he wanted to do as well. And he's been impressed on 2 counts with Juventus. Firstly, the desire they've shown to sign him. They've been tracking his development for the past 2 years.
As you have.
Sorry?
As you have.
More than that, I have. And secondly, the ambition Juve are showing in potential targets. We've already spoken about Jadon Sancho and potentially Victor Osimhen as well. So it looks like a question of timing when and not if Jonathan David is officially a Juventus player.
And you, for one, will be very pleased.
Yes.
Bridgie, Nico Williams. Now, this is an interesting one. A contract extension for him.
Wow, I mean, some extension. Get a load of this, everyone. 10-year contract extension with Athletic Club. I mean, I don't blame him. I love Bilbao. I mean, I don't blame him at all. but no, I mean, look, he was heavily linked with a move to Barcelona, wasn't he? And it does make you wonder if there's any issues in terms of Barcelona. We know their finances is something we always talk about here on our transfer shows every 6 months. Now, what's interesting here is he had a release clause, Nico Williams, which was believed to have been 53 million. That's now been increased to 50%. So it's a huge deal for him and it's just 10 years. That's pretty unbelievable. So, yeah, huge news for La Liga and a blow for Barcelona.
So the recap of the breaking news this hour, Dharmesh, is Kyle Walker and Burnley.
Incredible. What a coup this looks like for Burnley. They've agreed a deal with Manchester City to sign their England international defender, Kyle Walker. The deal could be worth £5 million. He's been around a long time. 35 years old is Kyle Walker. He even played alongside the current Burnley manager when he was at Tottenham, Scott Parker. So he's been having a medical today. All being well, we expect a formal announcement to come on this from both clubs sooner rather than later. And the contract discussions are over a 2-year deal, which would really suit Kyle Walker at 35 years of age. He's entered the final year of his contract at City, remember. And I guess he knew his future at City was not going to be a good one with regard to him and Pep Guardiola, because Guardiola sanctioned that loan move to AC Milan last season. It came with an option to buy. Milan didn't take up that option. He came back. He didn't go to the FIFA Club World Cup, but now it looks like he's got a move and staying in the Premier League and with Burnley.
That's good move for Burnley.
I think that's massive. You know, the 3 up favourites always to go down, but that's massive for him and massive for Scott Parker as well. Real leadership, Premier League experience in that dressing room. That could be massive for Burnley. Big
Guys,
signing.
Thank you very much for joining me. Remember, we'll be following up all these stories over on Sky Sports News as Chelsea prepare for their Club World Cup quarter-final and are dealt some bad news by UEFA for financial irregularities. Stay with us here on Sky Sports News. We'll round up all the sports news next.